Mike Foligno, welcome to the Raw Knuckles podcast.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. Raw Knuckles. Hosted by Chris Nilan.
Nilan going ballistic. I love it. He's going to hit his own players. He's a madman. He's a freaking madman. Look at him going to town. That'll be a suspension. That'll be a fine. Bring them all out, Nilan, you freak.
It's going to be sick.
Yes, I got to tell you, this is fun for me to do, and I've done quite a few of these, obviously, but having guys on that I played against that I guess I thought I hated, and I thought they hated me, and I always like to get to the bottom of it, but I certainly understand. I have Dave Brown on. I fought Brownie, I don't know how many times. I had him on. He's the nicest guy. I'm like, why did I dislike him so much? But good to have you.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you. The same to you too. I mean, I've watched a few of your interviews, and it's funny. It's like, geez, I kind of hated that guy, but he sounds like a good guy. His background story and this and that. And you said, I can't believe I was that angry at him, all these years.
It's funny.
I think in the past though, when you think about like what you went through and a lot of other guys in that capacity. You had to have a little hate on for each other to play the game that we wanted to play or had to play.
Yeah.
And we always felt, I think, too, that if you ever got too friendly, then maybe it would take a little bit of edge off your game, and you couldn't really afford that in those days,
Yeah, for sure. You think, you get friendly with someone, and then you can't do the job you're supposed to do. And it was funny back in the day, like, when you think of that Adams division, like, like, that was, like, I think the toughest division in hockey ever.
Yeah.
Like, that 80s era, like, it was unbelievable, the number of, like, I mean, everybody said, you had such a thing with Boston and Quebec, but every team in our division then, it was like a playoff game. Like whether we're playing Hartford, Buffalo, it didn't
matter.
Yeah, it was incredible. I look back and it's funny. I look back on your 82-83 season. Okay, now, and we're gonna go back a little bit to your junior career, but we'll get into this. But the regular season that year, we were 3-3-2. The Canadians and the Sabres. We played 8 times, 4 times there, 4 times in Montreal, which was awesome. And it was great for rivalry hockey, great for intense hockey, emotional hockey. And then you'd see each other in playoffs. And that's the year you beat us 3 straight. Like, I still think about that. My daughter was born that year, my oldest, Colleen, 42 years ago, Mike, 42.
Wow.
Years ago.
Seems like
right?
Like 10 years ago.
Yeah, I'll never forget, we got bounced out 3 straight. The only good part for my wife was that I was able to be there for the birth of Colleen because,
right. Well, we did it for you, Chris.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
We did it for us some other years when we had to be there for our wives.
Yeah, when I was counting on all that playoff money I was going to make. But,
jeez.
and, obviously I played with some teammates of yours, and we'll get into it. But I want to get back Sudbury, growing up there and what it's like for you, siblings, and how'd you get into the game?
Yeah, Sudbury. So I was born in Sudbury, and then a few years later, we actually had to go back to Italy. So my father couldn't afford to keep the whole family here in Sudbury, so there just weren't enough jobs and stuff. So we went back to Italy, and I was in Italy till I was about 5.5 years old. And so I started with soccer in Italy as a little guy. And then coming back to Sudbury, Ontario, there was no hockey. There's no soccer, and everybody's playing this game called hockey. And all of a sudden, I start, playing hockey. And my dad passed away when I was 10 years old, so I only knew him a little bit. And he actually built the last house that he built, our house, across the street from a a skating rink, an
Okay.
outdoor skating rink. And, when you're younger, you just say to yourself, you ask these questions, why us, why here?
Yeah.
And then later on, you start to realize that, there's a purpose for everything. And the skating rink was across the street from the house for a reason. And every day we'd play and, hone the skills kind of thing. And then that's kind of where the hockey started.
So I shouldn't guess at this, but I sometimes were you a Boston Bruins fan growing up, or a Leaf fan, or a Habs fan?
I was all three.
All right. Okay.
Loved, the Bobby Orr. He was from Parry Sound, which is a couple hours from Sudbury.
Yeah.
My former junior coach was Jerry Topazzini. He was a Sudbury guy. I love the Toronto Maple Leafs. My favorite was obviously there's a couple guys there with Daryl Sittler. Loved Lanny McDonald.
Yeah.
The Tiger Williams as I got older. I loved the Montreal Canadiens for their style of play. They could play any game, any type of game anybody wanted, and I just loved learning and watching from all those three teams. And then we got cable in Sudbury, television, and all of a sudden now we got the Buffalo Sabres. So one of my childhood heroes, Gilbert Perreault, was playing, and I became Gilbert Perreault on the ice, skating down around the kids on the rink. And it was just a really fortunate situation to be able to take in all those teams.
Yeah, for sure. And I think God, in that style of play that you played certainly would suit the Bruins well, for sure, your game. But it's funny, here in Montreal, a lot of Montreal, Boston Bruins fan, a lot of Montreal people, and a lot of them are Italians because of Esposito. And then we got, the Kanawaki, the reservation here, and a lot of those guys were Bruins fans because of Stan Jonathan. So it's funny. And they got sick of the Montreal Canadiens winning all the time, and they took up for those teams. But, so you're playing across the street from your house. When do you get drafted to play in junior hockey, Sudbury?
Yeah, so the last year of protectionism in junior hockey was my draft year. So every city in the OHL at that time, or the OHA at that time, was able to protect two players from their district, from their city, from their town, whatever. Yeah. And so you got this kind of special status, so to speak, in those days. And myself and right now I can't remember the other guy, but so we were protected to play for the Sudbury Wolves, and that was the last year of protectionism. So I was able to stay in my hometown to play for the Sudbury Wolves, which was incredible because financially, I don't know if I would have been able to go anywhere else, just because it just wouldn't make financial sense for my mom. And so it worked out obviously incredibly well for me to be able to stay and play in my hometown as a junior hockey player.
I guess so. When you look at so many guys I have on, I left home when I was 14, 15 years old, and people don't realize that when it comes to especially young hockey players who want to, pursue that dream of playing the NHL, you have to leave home at such a young age, and that is cool that you got to stay home and play right in Sudbury. How many siblings did you have?
I have two sisters, one older sister, Teresa, and one younger sister, Carla.
So were you guys born in Canada and then left for Italy and then came back? Is that it?
So my older sister was born in Italy, and then we moved to Canada. I was born. My younger sister was born 2 years later, and then we went back to Italy. So
you have that junior career, stay right in Sudbury, which, again, that's awesome for you. And certainly your mom having her son around. You play 4 years in Sudbury. You get drafted. Your draft year, 79, and I was drafted 78 the year before. I was in the 20-year-old draft. And then they dropped it. your year, I think, to 19, right?
18.
18. That's right. So they drop it to 18. Were you your last year, your draft year? Were you expecting to be drafted, or yeah, you had to be on the radar? I had to know you were on the radar as someone.
You know what? Yeah, I mean, by then you kind of know that there's some interest out there, and there's a couple of interviews with a couple of phone calls in that time, and with some of the teams. And I think also seeing guys before me go, because Ron Duguay, he was in Sudbury, Randy Carlisle, Rod Schutt, Hector Marini. Do you remember Hector Marini?
Oh yeah, Hector the Protector. You kidding me?
He was one of the greatest guys, and all those guys were so good. And we really had a good junior team, highly competitive, highly skilled. So that obviously helped me in junior to be recognized a little bit more, because a lot of scouts were coming to watch our teams in those days. I still remember, one of the lines from Jerry Topazini, Mike, you either got to be scoring, hitting, or fighting. Yeah. And if you're not scoring, you better be hitting or fighting. If you're not hitting, you better be scoring and fighting. And if you're not fighting, then you better be scoring and hitting. So, and then the other one was, and if you're not doing any of those, you're out of here. So you're replaceable. So you learn really quick. But we had a lot of great veterans that really helped us, to buy the time that you need as a young player. Get into some battles for you, and kind of lead by example and show you the way. And I really have to credit a lot of those guys for being there for me. The year that I was drafted, obviously, as well as everybody, that there was no physical place that we all went to get drafted. And so it was done by phone. And my godfather is a mason. So I was a laborer carrying hauling bricks and blocks. Yeah. The day that I got drafted, he's got the radio on, and Joe Bowen, the voice of the Toronto Maple Leafs, he announces, Mike Foligno goes to Detroit Red Wings, and I'm mixing the cement or whatever. and my godfather yells out, Mike, I think you just got the draft.
So that's how you found out.
That's how I found out, the craziest ways.
Yeah, and did they reach out to you soon after that, or how long?
Yeah, actually, Ted Lindsay just an hour later called me up and to congratulate me and welcome me, and that was an incredible feeling. Everybody kind of knew who Ted Lindsay was, and I got to know him real well, obviously, in the years in Detroit. My first year, especially, getting to know him, and him spending a lot of time. Him and his wife invite me for dinner there, and just making me feel real comfortable, and learned a lot from him.
So third overall you go, and I think back to the year before when I was drafted. I found out I was in a college bar called the Cask and Flagon, and somebody come up to me and saw it on TV. They said there were the 5 local college kids that were drafted in the NHL, and I saw it on TV. So fine. I got a letter 2 weeks later. I didn't get any phone call. I got a letter. We're inviting you to training camp from the Canadians. It's so funny when you sit there and watch today. And again, I don't even think if I was a draftable player back, if I could have went to the draft, that I would have been there, because, come on, I was 231 out of 235. I just wasn't on anybody's radar. Actually, right. The year I got drafted, was actually a favor. Dickie Moore, former Montreal Canadian, was a good friend of a guy who coached me when I was a kid. And I got drafted as a favor to that coach I had as a kid. Imagine that. It's the only way I got drafted.
The greatest thing is, when as a player, after that first week of training camp, it doesn't matter where you got drafted.
Yeah, you said it.
It doesn't matter. And you know what? That kind of stayed with me, too, over the years, because, when some of the younger kids would come to some of the teams in training camps, and, that they got drafted a little later, and, you use that line with them, after the first week, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Right. So you get drafted by Detroit. You go there. What's it like for you, your first training camp? I remember my first camp. I was like nervous as all hell. I felt out of sorts because, before I'm in college playing. Now, and I see the Montreal Canadiens won 4 straight Stanley Cups. And I'm like, do I have a chance in hell here? So what was it like for you going into Detroit?
Well, I mean, that was the year. There was a lot of unknowns and uncertainties because the WHA had just been bought up by the NHL, so to speak. Yep. So they folded, and a lot of players were available, and a lot of guys were starting to move to some of those teams that had a lot of players to choose from. And so I remember our training camp. We had tons of guys at our training camp. I want to say like 80 guys at our camp.
Yeah.
I felt like it was a junior camp at one time, but the training camps being 1 month long, there was a lot of opportunities to grow. Peter Mahavlich was my centerman for a while. Dale McCord was my centerman my first year as well, but Peter Mahavlich was my roommate that year. And I learned a lot from Pete. Obviously, the good, the bad, but he made things so much fun for me. It was incredible. But Peter was really patient, and it took me. I swear, it took me almost a month to put a pass on his blade, breaking out of our zone. But you can never make a good player a bad pass, right? So he always made me look good. He always made me look good, picking up behind, kicking up. And never once, I don't think it ever complained about my passing until I was able to calm down after that first month.
So, Big Pete, you had a great season, obviously, your first year, 71 points, 36 goals. And Pete, it's funny, as a kid, I used to go in and watch the Canadiens when they played the Bruins. And we went to a local bar close to the 99, actually, close to the Boston Garden. Me and a couple of my friends after the game. And we walk in, we're in there, and we meet John D'Amico, the linesman, was in there.
Yeah.
And we're looking over, and at the bar, there's Pete, all right? He got one on each arm. I'm not kidding you. There's no word of a lie. Got Stanley Cup rings on both fingers. He's got a cigar going, and he's got a cold beer in front of him. And I'm going, man, the three of us, we were like, I think I was 17, 18, just turned 18, but we had fake IDs, everything. But seeing Pete there, the three of us were like, oh, man, can you imagine doing that someday? It's like, all we wanted to do was play in the NHL. And here we are, 3 kids from Boston. You have a chance in hell. But that was my first memory of Big Pete. And then I got to meet him over the years, and he's a hell of a guy. No question, was a hell of a player. So you had that great rookie season. You spend 2.5 years. You end up getting traded out of Detroit. Did that come as a surprise to you, like being drafted by that team? You had two good seasons, and then in the third season, you end up getting moved to Buffalo.
Yeah, I think for me, Ted Lindsay was a big part of my, getting scouted and drafted to Detroit. And when he was outed, I guess, after 2 or 3 years, I just felt like, the ground was caving in underneath me, and I felt kind of lost a little bit. And I think that day of the trade was really weird because we had a morning skate, and everybody got on the ice, and then they canceled the morning skate, and they told us that there's going to be a trade in the afternoon. So I get home, and
so everybody's walking on eggshells. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, and everybody's at home now waiting for the call before the game that night, right? And Brent Peterson, he ended up calling me. He says, "Well, Mike, what do you think?" And I'm like, "Well, Brent, I don't know, but I said it won't be us. I mean, we're young guys, it won't be us." And next thing you know, I get a call from Jimmy Skinner, the GM at the time, and he tells me that we're traded to Buffalo. And then I called Brent back right away. I said, "You bastard, you knew already, didn't you?" He said, "Yeah." He said, "I didn't want to be the first guy to tell you." Yeah, it was a crazy time.
So you get traded with a couple of guys, which I think can help, right? I know when I ended up, you go on your own, you come into that atmosphere, you're by yourself, you walk in, there's a whole new team, but guys are so welcoming. I get it, but you went along with Dale McCourt and Peterson. So you get to Buffalo. I'm going to venture to say, other than the fact that you're probably disappointed at the time that trade, that was probably the best thing that happened,
Yeah, I think so. I mean, in Detroit, the owner was looking to sell the team, and the next summer, Mike Ilitch bought the team. I'll tell you a little story about that later on. But
Yeah.
yeah, so getting traded with Del McCourt and Brent, it was really good in the sense of having that companionship with those guys already. But also, I was thinking about going to Buffalo, and I was thinking, oh my God, okay, well, Danny Gare's there and Jim Schonfeld's there. This is going to work out okay. But
No, they're not.
no, they're going the other way. And I was like,
Yeah.
what the hell? So, but you know what? I met some great people there that are still friends today. Larry Playfair, Lindy Ruff, Albert Perot, just top-notch guys. Got a chance to be a little bit closer as well to home, which allowed, a lot of my family to come in and watch me play down there. So there were so many good things. And Buffalo, I got to tell you, Buffalo's a great place to play.
Yeah.
A lot of people, look down on the city or whatever, but to raise a family and to play, the fans were incredible. And, I'd like to obviously love to see them be successful here in the next little while as well, because they've struggled for a few years. But, it was a great place to raise a family and to play in those days.
Yeah, no question. I think a couple of cities, obviously Winnipeg and Buffalo, they get a bad rap in the league. And a lot of guys I talked to played in Winnipeg absolutely loved it. Serge Savard went there when Fergie pulled him out of retirement. He said he loved it. He loved playing there. But, I mean, he had really, the only place he had to compare it to was here. And all the success he had as a player is one thing, but he loved it there. And Buffalo, I always say Buffalo, that's the city they forgot to finish. They just they started building. They said, I don't know if this is going to work out. Let's stop. And they left it at that. They forgot to put up another building. But so you play with some guys there, and we certainly. I played with Lindy in New York with the Rangers. I played with Paul Sear. Poor Sizzy, God rest his soul. Paul couldn't get a break, that kid, and it certainly had a difficult time in retirement. But so funny when I remember going back and forth at you and Lindy Ruff and him yapping at me and Big Larry fighting him, who I absolutely love, Larry Playfair. Now, there's a guy, we talk about having guys on. I had him on, and I got a chance to meet him in person before I had him on the show, and we had talked a few times, and just a hell of a guy.
Yeah, he really is.
When I got traded, I was in, was I in Boston at the time? Yeah, I was in Boston, and he was in L.A. And, no, I was with the Rangers. And I went to hit Larry Playfair, and I hit a rut and fell, and I went into his knee. ACL. Yeah, and like he was hurt bad. I felt terrible about it, and I fought him I don't know how many times, but anyway, I got his phone number. I was in New York because I got his number from Lindy Ruff, and Lindy knew I didn't mean to do it. And I called him, so I call him. It was probably a couple weeks afterwards. I call and I said, "Hey, Larry." He said, "Who's this?" I said, "It's Chris Nilan." I said, "Fuck off. Who's this?" He would not believe it was me. He said it like 5 times. I said, "Larry, it's me. It's Chris. I'm not kidding you. I got your number from Lindy." And away we went. I apologized to him. He said, "I know you didn't mean to do it." And anyway.
I'm sure he appreciated that greatly. And
because I didn't. I felt so bad about that. But so that career there, I looked, Gilbert Perreault, and he was, and I think the year you beat us, 82, 83. All right, he's 31 years old. you're 22 years old. And I can't help but think back to when I came in the Canadiens locker room. And I was there for a little bit, but I looked at Larry Robinson. I think it was 29 at the time. I was 20. I looked at him like he was old.
Mm-hmm.
How crazy. Did you have that, like, as a young kid coming in, you saw, like, Gilbert Perreault did? Oh, he's one of the older guys in the team.
It's funny when you go to a new team, you know who some of the older guys are, and we had some older guys than Bear. But when you get to meet Gilbert, you'd never think that he was a day over 25, because just his energy, his spirit, his ability to play the game. He could carry a line, and just loved to play. He just wanted to give me the puck, let's go, and he made things exciting for me again. When I left Detroit, obviously you're a little bit down because the first time you get traded, and you don't know how to accept it, and you kind of question a lot of things, but he straightened me right out. I mean, the first little while playing together with him was incredible. Really became a good friend as well. Him and his wife and his family, Carmen, the late Carmen, great people, and
he's a funny guy too, right? Really funny guy.
Incredibly funny. Yeah, he loves that fun.
Yeah, it's funny because some of the guys, my teammates, had said that Gilbert Perreault, he is one of the funniest guys you'll ever want to meet. And I'm there, really? I didn't get that when I saw him on the ice, right? Because you never interact with anybody. But then I got to meet him in retirement, and he was a funny bastard, is a funny bastard. But so that time, and you're in Buffalo now, and certainly, like I said, I play with quite a few of the guys you play with. You guys had a hell of a hockey team. When you look back and you look at that roster from that year, like, man, you had some really good players. Andrew Chuck, that year, Dale McCourt, Andre Savard, Rick Sealing, Tony McKegney, Lindy, Craig Ramsey, Searsey, Van Box, man. You had that whole division, like I said, Adams' division was a tough division and talented division. I looked back at the games, and when you talk about hockey today, they want more goals in the game, right? We had the red line back then, 2-line pass. Just that season alone, your season, your Buffalo Sabres season. I'm gonna read you some scores out here. It's crazy. Your first game the season, lost 6-4 to Nordiques. You lost them again 6-4. Next game 4-4, then 4-2. Then you win 9-2 over Washington, 6-4. Another score 6-2, 6-2, 7-7 against the Canadiens. Unbelievable. Like when you think back in that era, you go to a hockey game right there. There's 6 to 12 goals scored between both teams. You knew you were going to see a fight or two. The game has changed so much from that era. When you look back at that era of hockey, did you like it better than what you see today?
I think I have to be honest with you. I mean, the game has gotten better and better and better. There's no question. I think that, every year, when you watch the playoffs and you come out of the playoffs and you're like, oh my God, like that's the best playoffs I've ever seen. Kind of like the Four Nations tournament that we just saw,
Yep.
And you said, you always say, I don't think it could get any better. But then the next year you watch again and the playoffs are even better, like the closeness of the game and the intensity of the star players and the role players, stepping up, defensive battles. I think we've done a great job and I say we, incorporating everyone that's played and the people that have managed, the people that have run the business side of it, our Players Association, the NHL alumni. We've all done, I think, a really good job in growing this game, and you look at it now, like we have women playing the game,
Yeah.
We've never had that before. It's a whole new market. You're able to bet on games, which I don't know about that one yet,
Yeah.
but it's kind of a different thing. And I think it's becoming more of a world-renowned game too, because you look at all the leagues in the world now, and the Olympics coming up and on 26th. It's going to be an incredible attraction for sure. And so, yeah, I think the game as a whole has gotten better over the years.
Yeah, and listen, Bettman takes a lot of heat for a lot of things, but the bottom line is he grew that game since he's been in there. He got it down south of the border on national TV, which nobody ever thought he could do. And he brought the revenue in, and the players are reaping the benefits. And that's a good thing, because for years, hockey always was, the fighting, too much fighting. They didn't like that, blah, blah, blah. But we look at the Four Nations. Come on, look how it started.
Yeah.
There was not one person in their seats when all that happened. I mean, it was incredible.
Yeah, and I think, Chris, you think back to our day. I mean, why was there fighting? Well, there was fighting because there was intensity. And if there's nothing that means, if it doesn't mean anything, then it's hard to get emotional. And when there's intensity, there's emotion. And that's what I say with, sometimes you got to create your own intensity. And you did that a lot.
Right. And you did that a lot.
No, I gotta tell you, I remember one night with you. Oh my God, I remember it like it was yesterday.
Bring it.
So we got into a scrum, and I said, "This son of a gun." Last time he caught me with one like underneath, and I said, "I'm gonna get him really close." And so you got me close, I got you close, and we're holding him. We're trying to give each other shots, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, boom, an uppercut, and it catches my corner of my eye on the left side. And then, I said, "Oh, that son of a bitch!" I got. So anyway, I'm holding, and all of a sudden, another uppercut cuts me on my other eye, and I'm like, I can't believe this. I went specifically into this battle to prevent that from happening, and he still cut me. So I said, "This guy's a good scrapper."
Well, I'll apologize now for that. I'm sorry. No, it's
another time. I gotta tell you, there was another time. So we were in an exhibition game.
Yeah,
it was in Buffalo.
Yeah, I remember in the corner.
Yeah, and then there was this guy. I don't know if he was a college guy, but he was a big yard ape of a guy, and you're holding on to somebody. I was holding on to somebody, and then you kind of gave the guy this like, "Go get him," or hit him, and the guy clocked me right in the jaw, and I was down. I saw stars. Everything slowed down, and I was like, "Oh my God!" And I broke 2 or 3 teeth, my molars, and so I was pissed, right? Because like this guy sideswiped me. So then the next game, and he's a big guy. So
was it Kent Carlson or?
Yeah.
Kent Carlson or Dave Maley, maybe?
No,
it had to be Carlson. That's who it was.
Yeah.
Big
and then
Kenny.
the next game and this is an exhibition game. Like, what are we doing, right? So then the next game was in Montreal, and I remember I said, okay, well, I can't let him have the last shot. So anyway, at the face-off, I dropped my glove so fast and clocked him one. I mean, he's a big guy, so I had to but I got the first one back in there. So
well, it's funny.
Retribution.
Like, it's funny. Like, listen, you could play the game and you were tough. And were you going to go out there and fight every shift? No. They wanted you on the ice to score goals. And I knew if I could kind of get you off your game a little, it was going to help my team. But you I saw you never shied away from dropping the gloves with anybody or showing up. You didn't have, there were certain guys around the league that had that problem. They had a hard time to show up when things got rough. You were never like that, for sure.
Well, I think that was all part of, being a complete player, like you knew what you had to do. And, you had to bring something every night. And if you weren't doing this other thing, you had to do something else. So, I think that's what made me proud. I think, and yourself, when you think about your tenure, it makes you proud that you showed up every night. And I can honestly feel good about my career just because I can say that. I can walk away and say that.
When you look back and now you get a chance to look back, who probably was the biggest influence on you in the way you played the game? And yeah, who was the biggest influence?
Well, I think there's a few people. It's not just one because you've played in so many different areas. But we had some good guidance. I remember Pronovo in Detroit, Red Berenson in Buffalo,
Big Red, yeah.
Matty Bowman for the start of my career in Buffalo. Jerry Topazzini and Junior. The guy that scouted me, Barry McKenzie. From Sudbury, and I remember him coming to our junior B game, and he was out there looking for a right winger, and Brian Fram was the guy he was looking at. Well, Brian Fram was our captain. He got hurt that night, and so I got a chance to be called up because Brian Fram got hurt when Barry McKenzie was at the game.
There you go.
And those are the breaks that you get in life. And then I ended up scoring a goal in my first game as a 15-year-old with the Sudbury Wolves. So it was like crazy, but those are the breaks that happen, and those are the opportunities that you have to be present in. And so then going to Toronto, I would have to say Pat Burns,
Burnsy, yeah,
Wendell
awesome.
Clark, Dougie Gilmore. We had some, Bob Rouse. Bob Rouse and I would drive to the rink every day together. Just some great people around our team there, and so there's a lot of people that you cross paths with that helped you bring your game along.
Yeah, for sure. And listen, I think back in my younger days that my coach, the judge, he was one of the guys that had a big influence on me. Because for me, it could have went a whole different way, and if not for him, like I never see the NHL, and that was his relationship with Dickie Moore, which got my foot in the door, and that for the judge, that's all I needed was to get my foot in the door, and here's a guy who coached me since I was a young kid, and just like you don't realize it at the time, but when you look back, that's why I asked you about that. He was such a big influence on me and helped me in such a big way. And, so you had that time in Buffalo, and did you meet Janice in Buffalo, by the way?
No, she was high school.
High school.
Sudbury High School.
Yeah, so you married to Janice your whole career, and you. How was that on the family? Like you had four kids, 2 girls, 2 boys. And how was that like moving with the clan? It's difficult. A lot of people don't get that, You go from Buffalo, then you up in Toronto. I know it wasn't far, but still picking up and moving everybody. It's difficult those times.
Yeah, no, you need a special person, obviously, to be able to handle, the moves and the changes and just the travel that. Being away for so long and so much of the year. There's a lot of taxiing around too, especially when you have kids that are involved.
Yeah.
I'm sure everybody's gone through it, whether you're in the game or not in the game of hockey. But those are all the challenges that you have to try to overcome. And I think you need a special person, obviously, to be able to do all that.
So those certainly the Buffalo years, you missed the playoff a few times, but your longest stint in the playoffs was in Toronto that year, 92, 93. Did you, having not won the Stanley Cup or hadn't had a kick at it yet, how were you feeling that year about your chances? I mean, that was a difficult season, no? When you look at the way it ended.
Oh, it was, yeah. I mean, I think from the start of that year, we felt like something special was going to happen. Cliff Fletcher had made some wicked deals to get some quality guys and different type of players. I mean, we had some good guys there to begin with, but just the mix wasn't what was allowing us to move forward. And with Dougie coming in and Jamie McCowan and Rick Natras and I think just some of the players that were brought in, they all had something to prove. And I know Dougie had something to prove, and Wendell had something to prove, and
It's
Mike.
a hell of a hockey team.
Oh my God! Glenn Anderson. You
Yeah.
got Felix Potvin. You got So we had a great mix of players, and everybody was hungry. Everybody wanted to make it a special year. And when we started with Detroit that year and lost the first couple games, it was like, oh my God, like this is not where we wanted to be at this time. This is not
Right.
what we envisioned ourselves being. So we pulled up our socks the next couple of games and tied the series.
Yeah. And then you end up with 8 points in those 18 games. And did you were you feeling it? Because believe me, being in that situation, I look at the situation the year we won. It could have been so different for me when it talk about winning the Stanley Cup. And a lot of guys I have on here, some guys have won it, some guys haven't. And I always say, like I do, I wish everybody could have had that opportunity to win it. Because for me, I look at it, we went to Game 7 in '86. They scored with a minute left. Wayne Babbage scores.
Right.
And they tie the game. Game 7 at the Forum. And I never forget on the bench that feeling. Like our whole bench went, we thought we were in. Right. And now we're going in the locker room. They're going to clean the ice. Now we're going to come out here and finish it. But are we going to?
Yeah.
And fortunate we did. But I look how such a fine line. And then, you get so close. Did you feel like even getting that close, did you feel like, we're coming back next year? We got a shot still?
You know what? You know that it's a game of breaks and inches. And, I'll never forget one great example was that Game 7 against Detroit. And they had a really good team and finished really high. And, we're like hanging on. And we ended up tying the series, going back to their rink. We ended up taking the lead 3-2, come back to our rink thinking, oh my God, we got them. We lost that game, I think 6-0 or 6-1. It was crazy. Like, how do we lose game 6-0 or 6-1? And now we're going back into their building and we take it into overtime. And I think either the last couple shifts of the third period or early in the overtime, Paul Coffey breaks out of the zone and he's heading up right in front of me. And you know how fast he is. I can't catch him. I can't gain a stride on him. He shoots the puck, hits the outside of the post, and careens off into the corner. And I'm like, oh my God, this is not going to happen for him. This is our night. And then in OT, Nikolai Brzezinski scores the game winner to put Detroit out and move us forward. And I was like, it's a game of inches. It's so close. Yeah.
And then you play LA. What goes on there? How disheartening was that?
That was really tough. I mean,
in the final, the conference final.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people point to that incident with the non-call and it had some weight on it for sure because of the power play goal, but those are the breaks in the game. But I think we had an ample opportunity to take the lead and keep the lead in that game, and unfortunately it didn't happen. But it wasn't for lack of effort. It was the guys really played hard, and I think the fans saw that we were a competitive team and hungry and wouldn't quit. And so it was disheartening because especially when we knew that there was an opportunity to play Montreal Canadiens in the next round.
Right?
Yeah, that would have been incredible. Yeah.
Yeah, like I look at those two overtime games. What was it, 5 and 6? You won 3-2 in overtime, game 5, and then game 6. God, if you could have finished it there, it's like you look back and shoulda, woulda, coulda. It's like you said, if you played the Canadiens, what an opportunity. I think that year, the Canadiens in the final, that year in the playoffs, they won 11 overtime games. Yeah. That's insane.
I think it was John Leclerc that scored a ton of them, right?
Right? Yeah. Like, it's unbelievable when you look back at that whole era. So you finish up in Toronto there. Well, you went to Florida for that one season at the end, 93, 94. Were you like, because I know at the end for me, I started to question myself on the bench.
Yeah.
I'm there. I got to be honest with myself. I couldn't be honest with everybody else, but I had to get honest with myself. And I felt I was letting it slip a bit. I wasn't getting there quick enough. It was getting so difficult, the fighting part for me at the end. I'll tell you, and I had him on probably a month ago, was Big Jim McKenzie. Remember Big Jim? Oh, my God. I thought, now here I am in the position that I was in when I came in. I'm going to go after all the big names. O'Reilly, Jonathan, let's go. I'm going to make a name for myself. And now these guys are coming after me and going to make a name. And I fought the Grim Reaper against Chicago. I was with the Bruins. Chicago one night. The next night we played Hartford, and I fought Jim McKenzie. And I'll never forget going to the penalty box going, ooh, I'm losing it. This is getting tough. And it was. And, you know, you couldn't say anything in the locker room. Hey, guys, it's getting tough on me, you know. This, things and I'm sure guys could see it, but it's like I started questioning myself, and I said, you know what, not good. And I kind of knew the writing was on the wall for me, but that's difficult to come to grips with. How about you at the end? Like, were you happy going to Florida, or were you just trying to extend your career? What was up there?
No, you know, Chris, I think along the same lines, you know, you know that your role changes a little bit. I was fortunate to be able to go to a team in Florida that had like Roger Nielsen coaching, Bobby Clark, GM, Bill Torrey, GM. You had Craig Ramsey, Lindy Ruff, a couple guys that I played with before. So they kind of knew me a little bit that way. Yeah. And they knew what I could bring. And Brian Screwland was our captain.
Screwy. Yeah, the best.
Scott Mellenby, one of our assistants. You know, so we had a great group of character guys. And, you know, one of the things that my role kind of changed in there was trying to make sure that they were ready to play, and trying to make sure that that I wasn't playing as much as you know, if I got 15 minutes a game, that was way too much for me. That means someone else wanted their job, you know?
Exactly.
So, but, you know, I tried to play as hard as I could every night. And like you said, you know, you lose a little bit. I felt I lost my touch a little bit. You just have that sense, you know, and I knew that after that year, because I had broken my leg 2 years before in Toronto. It was an open ice hit, center ice, and I thought I was done then. But I had an incredible trainer, Chris Broadhurst, who worked with me every day, picking me up at 6:30 in the morning, taking me to the pool and swimming around with a jogging belt. And I came back because of his efforts to play 2 more years. And I just knew that, you know what, I pushed it long enough. So I kind of made up my mind that at the end of my year in Florida, that was going to be my last year.
Yeah. So, and again, it's always difficult to walk away from the game and say it's over. And that transition for some guys is a little more difficult than others. I struggled, no question about it. Did you play with Clint Malarchuk in
I did,
Buffalo?
yes.
You did. Were you there the night? Yeah, you were.
Yeah, I was there.
How and I've had Clint on a few times. We talk. We do some work together, Clint and I. But what an awesome guy! And you were there that night. How was that on the bench? Like seeing your teammate, seeing what happened to him, and then it's amazing how his life was saved by, was it pizza, right?
Yes, Pizza Telly.
It's incredible.
And we had a trauma doctor that was taking the shift that night, and he ended up being right beside the door and jumped right out and helped out. And that was probably the scariest thing that I've ever seen in the game. You know, I'm sure there's, you know, lots of different injuries, but that's the worst one I've ever seen. You know, it's happening right in front of you. And I'll never forget going to the coach of the St. Louis Blues. And I said, hey, you know, we've got 2 minutes left in the period. Let's call this period off and take a break. We'll come back. And the coach said, I won't mention who it was, but he said, no. He says, we're going to keep playing. And I just called him every name in the book, you know, and I'm just so pissed. But anyway, I had to go see Cliff that night because, Clint that night.
Yeah.
I just felt like, you know, I was right near the situation, and he was a good friend of mine, and I wanted to make sure he was okay. And I'm glad I did, because that night I, you know, come into his room expecting the worst, and he's actually sitting up, you know, his neck taped up and bandaged up, and sitting up, and just basically said, I'm good, you know, just such a tough, you know, tough individual. But it made me feel good to know that he was okay. And I don't think I could have gone home that night and slept if I didn't know. And I'm
right.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't get that. And again, you know, we always hear this term PTSD, right? And here's Clint sucking it up that night. I'm okay, boys, right? And that crept up on him later in life, and really, you don't realize it. When you see something like that, you're part of something like that. One, it happens to you, but even if you're watching it, it's like all these soldiers who come back from war, you know, been over in Afghanistan or Iraq or wherever they've been, and to witness some of the things they do, it creeps up on you later in life, and any trauma. And that was a trauma. I watched that before I had Clint on, and God, it makes you sick when you see it. And I can't imagine being there. So the effect it had on everybody.
It's not normal, right? These aren't things that you anticipate or you ever think you might have to deal with. And not only is it something that's a physical, you know, presence, and it's happening, it's something that now he has to save himself. Because nobody else could really hold him. You know, it had to be him holding himself. And then the things you think about afterwards, it affects your whole life. It affects your career. It probably affected his career. So it changed a lot of things about what he envisioned himself, you know, doing and continuing to do for a number of years. And I think after that, it started setting in a little bit more where he needed help, you know, and yeah, so it was a really tough situation for him to deal with, and I'm glad he made all the right decisions to get the help, and it's amazing what he's doing today, helping.
Yeah, it is. He's a good man.
Many others, yeah,
the hell of a guy. It's funny, you know, when I talk about injuries, and I've seen a few tough ones. You know, Gary Galley got a skate in the face. He was cut right across there. I was in the room when it happened, and he come in the room, and I just had to tickle his feet while he was getting stitched, right? Like, it was unbelievable, the gash on his face. I couldn't believe it. And then I guess one of the ones that kind of made me a little bit sick was Torrey Robinson was fighting Shane Corson in front of our bench in Montreal. And he lost his balance, and he went back, and we heard him scream, right? He snapped his tibia, and the bone was bulging out through the sock. They come over to pick him up. He's like, get away from me, I'll be fine. But he needed help getting off, and he put his arm around one teammate, and you could see it. Like, it was sickening from behind. I was like, oh, my God. But some of the injuries you see, and if people don't get that in the game, it's like, you know, you got to suck it up, or you're going to lose your job. Suck it up and get back in there, boy. You're going to lose your job. But Florida, you retire from the game, and again, I have my well-documented struggles. How long did it take you to kind of put it behind you a bit and then start to move forward? Because it wasn't long, a couple of years later, you get into coaching. What'd you do the first year out?
You know what? I took the year, and I kind of just enjoyed family life for a while, and you know, got to know my kids again, and spent some more time with just living life away from the game. I actually, it's funny. I got involved in a little production thing with a friend of mine in Buffalo, and we were making bike racks, out of PVC pipes, the same thing that they use for the mini nets, nets. And Gene Bellis is his name, a good friend of Gilbert Peruls too. So he helped me. He helped me make that transition, with keeping my mind busy and active and doing something. But then about a year later, I get a call from Tom Watt, who was my first coach there in Toronto. And he was now coach in the St. John Baby Leafs in St. John's, Newfoundland. And he asked me if I would be interested in coming to join him to be an assistant. And he had always mentioned to me about life after hockey and maybe taking on coaching. And I said, you know what, maybe this is the opportunity that, presents itself that I should take advantage of. And I took it. So it was tough in a way because I'm in St. John's, Newfoundland, and my family's in Buffalo, New York. But they made it pretty convenient to be able to bring my family in almost every month and spend some time together, and allowed me to go back home, a few times. But so that was the start of my coaching career about a year after I retired. So it kind of helped the transition.
So did you do that a couple of years? When did you took the Hershey job, what, in 98, 99, right?
Yeah. So I started with St. John's, Newfoundland. Then I went to the Leafs at the end of the year because they fired Pat Burns.
Okay.
So I didn't really complete my first year in St. John's. It was kind of like a 3/4 of a season. And then went to Toronto, and then became a scout for Toronto the next year because Mike Murphy took over the team. And so I scouted with them. And then almost a few months later, became the assistant coach with the Colorado Avalanche. Because who was it? Joel Quenneville went to St. Louis, and they had just won the Cup the year before. So Mark Crawford, Jacques Cloutier were there. Pierre Lacroix was the GM at the time. Brought me in to be an assistant coach there. So that was a great opportunity, and I'm very thankful for having had the chance to be there.
Well, I look at just knowing you from playing against you, and I'll just share with you. I coached 1 year in New Jersey with Lemaire as an assistant, okay? And it was extremely difficult from the standpoint that I had a couple guys on there that really disliked me. And,
on the team.
Yeah, and I get it, but one of them was Scotty Stevens. The other one was John McClain. The other one was Danico, which I get it. I replaced Larry Robinson. Lemaire's system is such that you're going to play the system, that's it. But these guys made it really difficult on me. And Jacques knew that. But I take full credit for being where I was and how I got there. And I say that because it's not I'm pointing at the fingers at those guys, blaming them for my situation. But Lemaire was happy with the job I did. It's just the friction there between us. These guys, they wanted nothing to do with me. And it was, I look back at it, and I also say that I wasn't cut out to be an assistant coach. My personality is not that. And I could see how guys looked at us as having two head coaches, right? And that's how they looked at it. They said, they went from Larry's chill guy. He knows I'm not that way. And it was difficult for me to be an assistant. I went on my own down the American Hockey League, the East Coast Hockey League, and I coached there 2 years, and I loved being a head coach. I just was not a good assistant. And Lemaire was giving me that. Did you find you felt better in the head coaching role than you did as an assistant?
I think yes. I think that when I took over my own team in Hershey, Pennsylvania, I felt like, I could do the things that I wanted to do and do it my way, kind of thing. But I learned a lot from the people that I worked with.
Yeah, no question, right? That's like me with Lemaire. I learned a ton that 1 year.
Yeah, but then you do it your own way, right? You present it your own way, and you move at your own speed, and you make your own reads. And so I really enjoyed my time in Hershey. I was there for 5 years. The Colorado Avalanche won the Stanley Cup in that fifth year that I was there, and we got invited back with the skating the Black Aces and all that stuff at the end, and Pierre Lacroix was incredible. Francois Giguère. You think about some of the people that were on that team, and just incredible. I remember breaking into the league with Ray Bourque as a rookie.
Right.
Him being on the parent team and me coaching the farm team, and our organization winning the cup, and they won a cup for all the people involved, right? And it's just you're so proud and you're so thankful that they were able to do what they did. But credit to all those guys for doing that, and it was an exciting time to be in Colorado for sure.
So yeah. So it's funny. You go from Hershey now, and what brings you back to Sudbury, coaching back home? Do you have an opportunity? Someone reach out to you, or were you looking at Coach Junior?
I just signed an extension with Colorado, another 2-year extension after my 5th year, and about a month later, I get a call from Sudbury asking my availability, and I said, "Geez, I just signed," and then. He said, "Well, you know what? Like the offer's here. You can be the coach and GM," and I just didn't know what to think. I thought it was an exciting opportunity, and I spoke to my wife Janice at the time, and she said, "Mike, I think it's time we go home." And I said, "We've been renting for 5 years in Hershey."
There you go.
And we said, "Let's do it." And her family was still in Sudbury. I had family here still in Sudbury, and we decided to make the move. And sometimes, you don't know why you do the things that you do. And like I said earlier, the arena being across the rink from our house, we got to Sudbury, and a year later, my wife Janice was diagnosed with cancer, breast cancer. So, we were thankful for being home and having the support of family all around with her having to go through that. So, there's always a reason for things, and I always say that sometimes you don't see it right away, but you do it on, and that was our time to make that move.
Yeah, for sure. And Janice passed back in 2009, right? Was it?
Yes.
Yeah, you were in Sudbury for a few years before that. So now the boys, and I wanted to get to them but this is about you, and not those goddamn kids of yours. No. Before I get to the kids, scoring goals, nothing like it. I friggin' love scoring goals. When I scored a goal, I went absolutely batshit crazy. But I could never jump like you jumped. Where did that come from? Was that just... Where did that come from? Like, did you... I'm sure you didn't think it out. You just reacted. And then once you started doing it, did you just... You said, I got to keep this up.
Honestly, I think I started it with a couple of big goals in junior hockey.
Yeah.
And then I don't know what happened, but I think I was coming off of a spin when I scored a goal in the NHL, and I came off the spin and I had to do like a little jump or something. And I said, "Oh, geez, this is like natural." So all of a sudden, I started doing it after every goal, and it was an instinctive thing. I would never do it to embarrass the other team.
No, I know.
I never did it for that. I did it because of the jubilation of scoring a goal. So hard to score a goal, especially in the NHL. That the excitement just I had to spend the energy.
Imagine it is so hard to, and here we are back in our saying how hard it was to score a goal, and you look at it now with the goddamn goalies. You look at goalies back when we played, right? At least you could see some net.
Yeah.
Now it's like. It's like incredible how big they are, how much equipment. It's just like, so I get that scoring the goal, because for me, there was nothing like it. People always ask me, what's better, scoring a goal or winning a fight? I mean, are you kidding me? I'll take the goal any day. There's nothing like scoring, especially if it's a meaningful goal too. So that emotion comes out. There's no question. So now I want to get, so the kids. How old are the kids when you're in Sudbury now? Are they playing hockey? Both the boys, Marcus.
Yeah, they were.
And Nick.
Yeah, so Nick, when I came to Sudbury, Nick was already with the under 17 team, the U.S. National team.
Yeah.
And then Marcus, I think he was 10 years old and just playing Bantam or Pee Wee or Bantam here in Sudbury for actually it was a house league team in Coppercliff.
Yeah.
So then the next year when Nick found out about Janice, his mom, he decided that he was going to leave the program, and it was kind of not something that you did at that time because it was such a hard program to be a part of. But he said that he just couldn't play if he was away from home and not near family. So he came back, and fortunately the Sudbury Wolves had drafted him the year before, so he was able to play for us in Sudbury here, and that's how he was able to come back and play for the Wolves.
Yeah, that's unbelievable, and he got that opportunity for sure. When they're kids playing minor hockey, Mike, obviously having that, having played, you got the pedigree. When does it appear to you that, hey, geez, maybe these kids have a shot in the NHL one day? When did you see that?
I think, if you go back and you go through some of the experiences that they had in their careers, even early on, they both started in Buffalo, then they both played in Colorado. They even played actually in Florida, the young skate programs and Mike's.
It's unbelievable.
And but in Colorado, they also got the experience watching the Colorado Avalanche play at the games. No. So I remember, asking Nick about watching one of the games, and I said, Nick, did you see what? I think the way I questioned it was, I said, did you watch Peter Forsberg's last shift? Did you see what he did? He says, Dad, he's the only guy I watch. And I'm like, oh my God! So he actually watches the game, like he's learning from what some of the players are doing. But I think both of them actually benefited greatly when we moved to Hershey, Pennsylvania, and the GM of the team, Doug Yingst, he ran the Quebec Pee Wee tournament team that Hershey represents every year, and Nick got a chance to play on that team, and Doug Yingst treats that team like it is the Hershey Bears, and they got track suits, hockey bags, equipment, they got the whole team camaraderie stuff going on all year long. They got treated like professionals, and they got a lot of ice time. So I think both of them really benefited from being part of that Quebec Pee Wee tournament and the experience of being over there, billeting with families and stuff. And I think they both ended up billeting at different years with the same family that had Nick. So it was a real treat.
So the boys go off and have their NHL careers. So, like, you got to be beaming as a dad. Now, I think Marcus looks more like you, and I think Nick looks more like his mom. Do I have that right?
I think so. Yeah, I think you got that right. Yeah. Nick's more the Jackman temperament, the Eddie Jackman background there. That's how they're all related. So, they're the short fuse. Marcus is a little bit longer fuse.
Geez, that Minnesota, their team, again, he's an assistant captain with them or an alternate captain, right, with them?
Yeah.
His leadership skills, same with Nick. Now, did they inherit those from their dad, or was that developed over time?
I think developed over time. I think there's a lot of influences out there, whether it's family or outside of family. But I think being exposed to the things that they've been exposed to, like everybody always worries, we can't move because, we don't know anybody there. And, but then all of a sudden they go to the next city and they realize they just made one of the best friends of their lives.
Right.
So the move was a great move. And then they look forward to the next opportunity. And I think that kind of ability, that camaraderie that's developed, and being able to have a relationship with and making new friends, that kind of stuff, meeting new people at school, all the things that they get exposed to, I think, round them out as individuals, and I think help them, with their maturity and leadership.
Is there anything that both your sons ever, like when they got to the NHL, did they call and say, "Hey, Dad, what do I do if this happens?" Or did they ever have to lean on you for any of that kind of advice or ask you for that advice?
You know what? Never really with strategy and that kind of stuff, because I don't want to be their second coach, but just with more, I think, life stuff. And we try to, really talk about that more than anything else. I have my list of things when I watch them play. I have to tell you, about a month ago, I went down to see my girls. They live in Buffalo, New York, and I was going through Toronto, and Marcus happened to be playing there that night, but I didn't know if I could get out early, so I didn't tell him I was coming. So I ended up sneaking into the Leafs alumni box and watching the game. I was kind of making some mental notes. So I got to tell him this, and maybe I'll tell him that, And then in the last 3 seconds of the game, he beats, I think it was Nylander, down the ice to score a goal on the open net. Like he made a dash effort. He scores the goal. Now I said I had to cross off everything on my list. I couldn't give him hell anymore. Now I had to give him $1.
What the two of them, what happens when they face off against one another? I know Nick has been with a few teams, but whether it's Chicago against Minnesota, that's pretty much a little bit of a rivalry there. But when they face off against each other, how's that watching them? Did they ever get, nasty with each other or yippy with each other?
Well, they both play kind of a physical game, so they
right?
Run into each other a few times. But I honestly think it was more exciting at the start because there was a novelty. Like you did this, okay, well, I'm going to do that, and it's for your team, and I'll do this for my team. But I think now it's like, it's harder. It's harder when you go so many years playing against each other, and maybe who knows if there's time left in Nick's career that maybe they can get a chance to play someday together. I don't know. You'd always like to see that. I've seen it happen a couple of times in the past with, I think, in the Niedermeyers, played together. There's probably others that I can't remember right now, but I remember in our day it was the Watson brothers.
The Sutters.
The Sutters played together.
Right.
Yeah. So it's kind of a rare opportunity.
Yeah, it is. It's funny. It'd be nice to see them get to play some games together for sure for you. I'd love and for them to experience that. But it's funny. I think back the Nordiques and the Canadians when we had that big brawl, and Mark Hunter actually jumped on Dale. Right. But I think he did it more to protect him at the time. But when you think two brothers, here they are, when the game of hockey, there's only one game that this could happen in. Two brothers would end up fighting each other. Like, it's crazy,
Well, I played with Dave Hunter, the older brother Hunters.
Yeah.
Dale Hunter was my center in my last year of junior. So I know exactly what you're talking about. All those Hunters, man, they're tight, but they compete like crazy, don't they?
Yeah. So, listen, it's been great chatting. I just, if you're gonna give a kid comes to you and says, "Hey, Mike," and I got another question after this, but hey, Mike, what's the advice you would give someone who's starting out and who's playing hockey but wants to get to the NHL? What's the one piece of advice you would give a kid?
I think it's just be your best, and you don't know really what your best is until you move up in the next levels. And I think that if you are fortunate enough to have some coaches around you that can push you, and I always say this about a player never knows how good he can be, but a good coach does, and the coach has to give the player the vision that he doesn't have yet. of what he could be.
Got
And
you.
so if he's fortunate enough to be surrounded by people that have a vision of where that talent, that work ethic could take him, then I think that you're in a good spot. And I think no matter what, work as hard as you can.
Yeah, well said. And I say that because my time here in Montreal, and I'll tell you, I had Claude Ruel work with me. It was awesome, right? On the fundamentals, stuff like that. Jacques Lemaire, when he came in, he talked with me, he did drills with me, and he told me why these drills were going to help my game and where they're going to help it. Like, it was incredible for me. It kind of, it helped take me from just, being average, I can get on the ice here and there, to a full-time NHL player. And that, to me, was the biggest thing and the biggest, thing that Lemaire did for me as far as a player. Was incredible. He worked with me every day, told me, showed me, and then not only told me and showed me, then he played me. You know what I mean? He put me in situations, which is really cool.
I got the chance to meet Jacques in New Jersey, and even as a coach, an assistant coach there with Pete DeBoer.
Yeah.
Still, as many years as I played, as many years as I coached before him, I still learned a ton from him. Guys like Mike Kitchen in Toronto. As later years of being a player, still worked with me every day to make me a better player. Now, Scotty Bowman teaching me defensive part of the game. Craig Ramsey, defensive part of the game.
Yeah.
Everybody, brings something that you can take from it. And, like I said, the thing is to be open-minded and work.
For sure. Now, one more. And I read a little piece that you were coaching sled hockey, the Canadian national team, as an assistant. Now, I had the opportunity to talk to Rick Middleton about the U.S. team. And, he come on, he said, God, you got to really be careful when you're teaching or trying to teach the game to these guys, because it's not the same as the game we play. How'd you find it? And what are some of the things like you got to be careful of when you're speaking to these Paralympians or para hockey players, sled hockey players? What are some of those things you got to pay attention to when you're teaching?
Well, I think number one is there's no backward skating. There's a couple of the elite players that can do a little bit of backward skating, but there's none of that really. So it's a lot of angling and a lot of scissoring across the ice, and angles are huge. Timing is huge, and and you're always kind of moving, but you're always trying to stay in an area where you can close a gap. A lot of similarities, but a lot of differences, and I think the camaraderie part is incredible between the players. And we have an incredible rivalry. I'm not with the team anymore, but for the last 5 years I have. And the camaraderie is incredible. The competitiveness it's fierce between USA and Canada. It's just like what you saw the other day.
Yeah.
With the four nations, it's incredible. The tenacity, the grit, and the work that the players bring to every game. It makes for entertaining hockey both ways. I think, when you look at what the elite players of a para hockey team can do, it's incredible. Their speed, their ability to shoot not with one hand, but both
hands, right?
To be able to pass pucks underneath the sled. If there's people out there that have not watched the game, they should go, because it's fantastic.
I love it when I see it. No, obviously, the first time I saw it back, U.S. ended up winning the Olympics there that one year. It was incredible, and Rick was coaching. And then I've seen a few games, over the past few years. U.S. does have a really good team, and it won't be long. Canada will certainly catch up. I mean, that rivalry, we see it in junior hockey. You see it in the pro level here in the Olympics. We're going to see it again. I love when the U.S. plays Canada. Boy, that Four Nations Cup, right? Comes down, we were just talking game of inches, overtime. You know, the U.S. had, 3 or 4 chances to win that game before Canada come down and scored, right?
Right.
The goaltending, made the difference there, right? Game's over.
Bennington saved the game a few times. But, that's what you get, right? In these huge games, you get the best of every player out there. And Bennington really played well, obviously. I think even for Sweden, for them to win their last game, against USA was huge for them because they hadn't won earlier, and then at least they're leaving full. They're
left with something.
Feeling good about themselves. So it made for great a preview to what's coming. So that was really a great tournament for hockey in general.
Oh, good stuff. Listen, Mike Foligno, awesome to get to know you a bit here. I wish you nothing but the best. Again, my condolences. I know it's been a while for Janice, but I did something I didn't know until I researched on you. The only time I researched you before was to know if you were lefty or righty. That was my only research.
Well, Chris,
anyway.
Great to meet you as well. We've never really had a chance to talk before, but thank you for doing this and keep up the great work. It's very entertaining, and you're doing a hell of a job.
Thanks so much, and good luck with the grandkids and the boys and your daughters.
Thank you
all the
so
best to all of you. All right, be well, my friend.
Thanks.
Thanks, Mike.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast Raw Knuckles with Chris Nilan on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.